Hey, Deliberate Leaders. I am your host, Allison Dunn, executive coach and founder of the Deliberate Leaders podcast, dedicated to helping leaders build strong, thriving businesses. Each episode, we featuring inspiring interviews to help you on your leadership journey. I am excited to introduce our returning podcast guest of ours. We have Dr. Bob Nelson with us. He is the president of Nelson Motivation, a leading authority of employee recognition and engagement. He's worked with 80% of Fortune 500 companies, which I think is super impressive. He is a senior fellow for the Conference Board, a top thought leader for Best Practices Institute, and was named a top 5 management guru by Global Guru. Fondly known as Dr. Bob, he has also authored over 30 books on employee motivation and engagement, which has collectively sold over 5 million copies and has been translated in more than 30 languages. I don't think I could even list 30 languages, which is sad, but true. I'm not going to lie. He is the co-author of the new book, Work Made Fun Gets Done, Easy Ways to Boost Energy, Morale, and Results. Dr. Bob, it's so great to have you back with us here today. Thanks for joining us.
It's glad to be back with you. Thanks for having me.
So I know what your tip was last time. I'm going to guess what your tip might be this time, but I like to kick these off with a deliberate conversation about what your number one leadership tip is for our listeners today.
Well, for the purposes of our conversation, it's got to be ways we can have more fun.
Awesome. And I hope this episode dives deep into all the hows and whys and ways to do that. So I'm not going to ask you for clarification, knowing that is your number one tip. So, we're in an amazing position in our world today where we have a lot of opportunity, right? We've got new ways of doing work. We have new ways of recruiting talent and ways to retain the talent that we want to keep. So how do we keep our good people and attract new people? Like, go, ready, set, go.
Well, and that's critically important today. We're actually experiencing what's being called the Great Resignation. In just the last 3 months, over 11 million employees in America have quit their jobs at all levels and are looking to do something more fulfilling, more convenient, and perhaps more enjoyable. So fun is no longer in the optional category. You have got to work fun into the workplace, the jobs, the interactions with those that you work with.
So it's one of my top criteria when I'm working with someone is, from a coaching standpoint, like it's got to be fun. Like if this is not going to be fun, I don't even want to do it.
Yeah.
And, but also having it be part of the work component. I think that when I listen to the news, like there's the talk of so many businesses that are just absolutely desperate to get back to work. But as you say, the best way to do so is to have more fun. So tell me more, like, how are people doing it? What are some creative ways?
Well, I think like, for example, a lot of New York firms, Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, they're saying, you got to be back in the office. Head of CEO of Morgan Stanley, if you can go to eat in a restaurant in New York City, you can come back to work in New York City. And it's to me, it's like, it's quaint. It's kind of, it's certainly command and control, old line management. And I got to tell you, people are done with 2-hour commutes. And they're, even during the pandemic, there's been close to 1 million people that have left New York City. And this is happening all across the country. That people are leaving San Francisco. They're leaving the major cities, and they're going where they can.
They're coming to Idaho. I'm just saying.
Boise. We were just talking about that. Boise is becoming a hot spot for being a Zoom community. If you can live anywhere, if you are virtual, or then why not go live a place where you can enjoy where you're living and maybe have a bigger house in a great neighborhood, and you don't have to be cooped up in a little apartment in a major city. I have this is what's happening across the country, and people want more space, and because they're spending more time at home, and the whole work from home thing is not going away. 65% of those people that have worked from home during the pandemic said they want to continue that. And if their company says, well, no, you got to come back to work, 58% said, well, I'm going to quit then. Because guess what? They've got more, they have more options now. My son was one of those. He had a great job, and it was time to leave, and he got I think 5 or 6 job offers in just a short while, and he's now working for a company that's 100% virtual. There's no office to go to. There's no headquarters. There's no place to mail stuff. 100% virtual. And you know what? They haven't missed a beat. They have, in the way that they communicate, the way they meet. It's not the same way that we used to do in the office. They don't all pile into the conference room and we go, and we all are captive. They post presentations before the meeting, and they ask everyone to view them before the meeting. And when it comes to the meeting, they just take questions. And then the whole thing's documented for a new hire to see the issues that have been discussed. They have once a week, they connect them with another person in the company working virtually at random. So over time, you get to know who's you're working with. And he's in Seattle now. He was working for a company virtually out of San Francisco now. So they did a meetup of other employees that work for the same company, and they got together face to face just to get to know each other. You can make it happen virtually, So now, of course, some jobs you can't. If you're working a meat packing plant, you're going to have to do it there. If you have to, if you have, so yes, not everyone can do that. But of all the people that did during the pandemic, they want to continue doing that, or with slight deviations. They will, Apple asked people to come back 3 days a week, and they got heavy pushback for that. And what employees were upset about was that, they were saying, well, we know you all are anxious to get back to work. No, we're not anxious to get back to work. we enjoy our home and more time with our family, and working when it meets, maybe that's after dinner. Maybe it's not the 8 to 5, they know best when they're most productive. And it was insulting for them for the management to say, we know you've been anxious to get back to work. They're saying that without checking with us first. We are not anxious to get back to work. So can we talk about this? They're getting pushed back on 3 days a week. And so maybe it's going to be, less than that. My wife, who's a virtual employee, and she started the job during the pandemic, they said, well, we've got, we have to get back to the office. And it's like, and she already said, well, if I have, she loves her job, she's very dedicated. If I have to go back in the office, that's it. I'm quitting and find something else. And they said, well, sometimes for the office to meet face to face. Okay. So it was going to be, so they settled on 1 day a week coming to the office. And then they actually had to buy or rent an office building just for that 1 day that's, mainly empty, which is silly. And, so she did that. She's kind of the whole way, the whole commute, she's going, I can't believe I'm wasting my time, But she gets there, and what does she find? The same people she's already got to know on Zoom are now just sitting around the same table physically. Nothing else has changed. Did we have to all pile here to make it happen? No, we didn't. And now that's off. So they've because of the Delta variant, they've pushed that off. So now they actually have one person, and an admin comes into this empty office and makes sure the coffee machine is working for when people come back. It's just, how silly. It's like we're turning the corner on this. We're definitely turning the corner, and people will never go back to commuting 2 hours a day, whether it's by car or train or van, that's done. That is so done. And that's why we're having this massive exodus. And already that was on top of labor was already short at all levels, from entry level to high tech, all up and down the scale. Hard to find good people because they're reevaluating what they want their life to be and their connection to work and the type of work they're doing, and are they valued for that? The days of just saying, well, we paid you a paycheck, that, I mean, come on, and we gave you some benefits, so come on, no, that's not good enough. I can get a paycheck anywhere I work. If I want to work for a place that has more meaning, where I have more purpose, where I'm part of something larger than myself, where I'm valued for my contribution, which is not that hard to do, by the way, but it's still very rare today. And 85% of employees feel overworked and underappreciated right now. 85%. And so it's not good enough to say, well, hey, we gave you a 2% increase. Then that's going to keep me committed for another year. We got to do a lot more here. And it starts with a thank you. You did a great job on that assignment. I always can count on you. And that could be a comment, on Zoom, in the hallway. It could be a note. Hey, it could be a meeting. Hey, I want to talk to you, just to say, I reflected over the time you've been with us, and I can't tell you, I can't be more proud of a hiring decision than the one I made with you. Who's had that conversation? And how will that make that person feel if they get it? I can tell you how it can make them feel. Make them feel like $1 million. You don't have to give them $1 million to make them feel that way.
I totally agree with you that it is honestly, it's the very small things that actually keep that stickiness inside of an organization, and being
primarily no and low cost too, by the way, which is just delightful, Right. So it starts with thanking people, catch them doing something right, praise, which can be personal, could be electronic, it could be on Zoom, it could be in a meeting or the beginning of a meeting, it could be publicly with whatever network, with the department, the company, the community, all sorts. Those are all valid, and you got it's a wide smorgasbord to draw from. So if you're just doing one thing and you're not doing enough, open up your head and your heart to start valuing people and start managing from the heart instead of the checklist.
Bob, I think I'd like to kind of just ask a couple of questions and open it up to thinking some of the challenges that at least I recognize are happening. So there's this work from anywhere movement, right? Like you don't need to be in the office in order to be able to get work done. 100% agree. And then there's this other aspect where it is about more money driven, is if you're going to expect me to show up, then it's being driven on the dollar. Are you finding that's the case with some of your clients as well? Meaning if I need to come here, I want top dollar for exposing myself or showing up.
Yeah, and we don't have a COVID policy, so now you're risking my life, and because no matter how you cut it, people are going to object. If everyone has to be vaccinated, then people object. If everyone doesn't have to be vaccinated, and you just have to have a COVID test once a week, guess what? 40% of employees say, if I'm going back in the office and everyone's not vaccinated, you are putting me at risk. I don't care. So no, it's there's got to be a little bit more combat pay here because you're putting me in the line of fire. And so, yeah, that is true.
Okay.
But also, even combat pay wears thin. You could, well, it's a terrible place to work, but at least they pay you good. Well, they'll carry you for a while, but even then, it's like it's not worth it. I want my life back. And so that's a short-term solution. And right now we're seeing a short-term solution on that. We're people desperate to hire people. They're raising the minimum wage, and it's funny. Like hospitals, they're in the same community side by side, and they increase their pay, and everyone from one hospital goes to the other one, and then the other hospital does the same thing, and they get a hiring bonus, so they get $5,000 or $15,000, and they go there and they say, "What's the minimum? 3 months? Okay, 3 months." And they go back to the other hospital and get paid again. This is great. And when all is said and done, nothing's changed. Hey, how about just having it be a better place to work? Here's an idea. Why don't you give the employees the resources they need to do a good job, instead of asking nurses to work dual shifts? And it's like, are you kidding me? Are you really? And now someone just told me that a nurse had worked a dual shift. They hit someone on the way home because they're half asleep. It's like, really? It's like, let's start taking care of people. If you value them, start treating them in a way that they matter. And it's not just the money. 92% of employees want to have better communication where they work, two-way communication. They want to be they want to be transparent. They want transparency to know. They want to be able to ask a question, get an answer, not be embarrassed by asking a question. 89% of employees right now want to be involved in decisions, especially those decisions that affect them in their job. How much more common sense can you get? And, hey, can you include me in the decision that's going to affect me? And actually, I've been doing this job and you haven't. Maybe it's a good place to start with me to see how it might be done better. Just saying.
Only 92% of people want that.
89%. Want that. The other 11% have given up. They're just showing up, and the commute's not too bad, and maybe I'll retire in 3 years.
And there are those. I do see
there
that.
There are, and some of that's from the pandemic, where people had to cut back, and they go, "Well, I can't. If I'm not getting a steady paycheck, then." And then they said, "Well, they made some cuts, and actually it kind of worked okay. We're not panicked, and guess what? I'm kind of enjoying life better. It's the pace has gone down, and I see the family, and it's like a lot more planning that I can decide. I'll still work hard and do the job, but it doesn't have to be in that location at that exact time. Does it really? Well, if your boss still thinks he does, then okay, I'm going to find another place that doesn't feel that way. I just mentioned my son. He took a new job, and 100% virtual. Not only was it a new job, but let me see, what was it? He jumped his salary by, oh man, let me see, $80,000. So it's sort of wow, because guess what? He can deliver the goods, and he's very comfortable managing virtually, and he's done that. He's hired people around the world and manages them. So he's fine-tuned that skill set, and awesome. and so that's going to be in higher demand, because it's all the people that say, "Well, I'm just not comfortable unless I can see the people. I can't trust that they're working." Well, guess what? You don't have to worry about it, because no one's going to work for you anymore anyway. And the way you show that trust is by micromanaging. Well, let me see that. And oh, this isn't done right, and then you do it for them. That's abdication. Management isn't being a super worker where you do everyone's job and you're the one that tells them what's right and what's wrong. Management is getting the work done through others, says Peter Drucker. Mm-hmm. It's being there for them. How can I support you? What do you need to do a better job? How can I help you deliver to our customer? I can't talk to every customer. That's why I hired you to begin with. I need to trust you, and I need you to do a good job. So how can I best help you? Call me when you need. We can role play, whatever you need. You need certain resources, let me go to bat for you. This is a job of management, not being, command and control. I'm calling the shots. I told you, don't ever wear that outfit to the office again. It's like, come on. That's so out of sync with the day we're in.
Yeah. Can I ask you to do me a favor? So you have your book right there handy, right? Could you hold it up for me?
Yes.
All right,
Yes. Yes.
fantastic. All right. So, in your book, you feature hundreds of ideas to make work fun for a little cost. Can you share some examples with us that everyone should be able to implement,
Well,
regardless of whether they're working from anywhere, in place, in Zoom, in office, whatever it may be?
yes. Yes. And we end up, when we collected all these ideas, the organization we used was kind of a concentric, that we started with one individual and their own work they're trying to do. And then we talked about the group activities, and then things a leader can and needs to do, and then ultimately what an organization can do. So I can give you examples of each type. So individually, for everyone has routine and boring tasks they got to do.
Mhm.
The paperwork or whatever it is, and or cold calling or whatever. There's some part of your job that you just kind of hate. And so how can you make that more fun? Well, surprisingly, there's quite a lot of things you could do. You can play a game with yourself. Hey, well, I know someone that just and again, it sounds silly, they take their to-do list and they relabeled it their fun list, things they get to do.
Mine is
Is it
the to-do list.
the what?
The to-do list.
I love it.
Ta-da! Ta-da!
There you go. And so now
Everything to do.
already you're setting an attitude. You're framing it. You can set your timer for 20 minutes. This is actually an established technique. And how fast can I get it done? And it's a race. And then if you meet the goal, you could reward yourself. Well, that could be taking a quick walk. That could be calling a friend you haven't talked to in a long time. Your choice. You pick the friend you want to call. It could be going online shopping for a couple minutes. So what would do it for you, and then put a spark in your day. It could be having a buddy. I know when I get stuck on work I'm doing, I talk it through with my wife, and I say and just by talking out loud, then I can solve the problem or a way to get started, and that's, again, simple, and that's but powerful. I had and it goes on from there. One of the amazing things of doing research for this book was that no two people had the same things that were fun to them. If you at the start of the project, if you ask me, well, what's fun? Well, that's easy. It's when you're laughing, you're having fun. That's no one else said that. But if you ask my wife what's fun for her, she literally would say, when I get home at the end of the day and I got a lot done at work, I feel good about myself, and I feel it was a fun day. Wow. Okay. That's not my definition of fun, but if it's hers, let's do more of that. But I had, and just, it was so fun collecting these ideas. I had a woman say, and I didn't know about this. She said, Yo-Yo Ma, the famous, classical cellist, he did a performance in 2015. He played for 8,000 people. He played Bach's 6 concertos in their entirety, 3 hours straight from memory.
Wow.
He only took like a 5-minute break in the middle there, and to 8,000 people from memory. And she says, when I put that on, I feel like the hands of God are running through this music. I put it on when I work, and it's free. It's on the internet. Look at it, and you put it on, and I tried it. She's right. All of a sudden, everything you're doing has more meaning to it. It has more importance to it because you're touched by this music. It's like, if you haven't tried that, you gotta try it. Other people are inspired in other ways. So find out what does it for you that puts a perk in your day, and all of a sudden it's not work anymore. The time flies and you're in the flow, and so that's you can do that individually, and that's where it really needs to start, because there's a frame of mind. If you can't start with making your own world fun, how can you help to make it fun with other people? So now if you're working with others, and we're doing a lot of that on Zoom right now, as you and I are, it's give you, you can have a lot of fun on Zoom. Actually, a lot of people don't think about that. It's not just crunching through the agenda, and it's hard. There's a Zoom fatigue. I talk to people and they have 8 hours of nonstop Zoom meetings, and their face is frozen, and they always have to be on because the whole group is there, and it's like, ay, yeah, yeah, and all of a sudden you want to shoot yourself, So you got to. How can you have some fun there? Well, here's an easy one that I really recommend, and you could do it in person, but you can also do it on Zoom. It's called a praise barrage. A praise barrage. So next Zoom meeting, hey, before we get started, I just want to go around the group, and as I call someone's name, I like everyone else to say what they most value about working with that person. 100% positive. Let's start with John. Okay, Mary. Let's go to Joe. And the whole activity is 5, maybe 10 minutes. And what'd you just do? Everyone got specific feedback from who they work with about what they most value about what they do. So John got called out. John, I just love how you always jump in and are ready to help. That means so much to me because it makes my job easier when you jump in, and makes me want to help you. And thanks for doing that. Guess what, John? Now that's practical feedback. It's going to make John feel good, but it's also going to make him register. And without asking, you will get more of that from John. Guaranteed. What is recognized gets repeated, hands down. And so people that they're good at something, they can become great at something and help be a better contributor as part of the team. So that's just one simple thing. You could do that, and then next time you're together in person, you could do it with index cards. Write a thank you note to anyone in the group you owe a thank you haven't gotten to, and someone gets 4 or 5 or 6 thank yous on index cards for something they've done. That's going to resonate, and you're going to feel a pride, and you're going to feel a stronger attachment to this group of people, so that you look forward to sitting with them and working with them because they're great people and they value who you are. And all of a sudden you start feeling that way. It's going to naturally come across in how you deal with the customer. Guaranteed. I worked with Disney for 15 years, and Disney is based on the foundation of recognition. This is the foundation, and it started with an epiphany Walt Disney had early in his career when he was working somewhere, and he realized that you can't yell at someone in the back room, expect them to go out and deal with the customer like nothing's wrong. None of us can disengage like that. You just get yelled at, you come out, and then you're on edge and you're kind of short with the customer. And so he decided, if I ever have a company, I will treat my employees as though they're my customers, knowing that if I do that well enough, they will naturally pass it on to the end customer. And that's the secret of Disney right there. And that's at Walt Disney World, they have 250 ways to recognize people and performance and behaviors and core values and excellence. 250. Now that might sound like overkill to people, but it's not to them. It's not. They still brainstorm. What else could we do? What else could we do? They're not resting on their laurels. They're doing the same thing since 1955. They have perfected it, but they're still exploring. I did a backstage tour of Disneyland a couple of years ago. I remember going through the kitchen. There was this whiteboard up, and I said, "Hey, what's up with this?" They go, "Well, we use this to explore new ideas that employees have for how we can do things better." And there was, I go, "Really? You guys have been doing catering and food services since 1955. You have it all figured out." "Oh, no, we don't. We are only as good as keeping on top of it. Constant innovation. And that comes from connecting people and asking them for their ideas and then thanking them for their ideas. And a lot of times letting them pursue their ideas and supporting them. Who's going to have more energy for the idea than the person that came up with it?" And so we're constantly a work in progress, perfecting, polishing the diamond, There's no one there saying, "No, we told you what to do, before, just do what I tell you." Boy, that's abdication. And that because the person you do that to say, well, great, I got a better idea. I'm just going to check my brains at the door when I walk in, because you're just going to tell me. And if I don't do it, then you're going to yell at me and maybe take it back, give it to someone else. Great, less work for me to do. This is great. And that's what happens. People, I'm chagrined by people. They take a job, they come to hate it, they go someplace else, and they repeat the cycle. And they go from job they hate to job they hate to job, and then they retire. A whole chain of jobs that they hated. Wow, really? How about starting with what you really want to do with your life, and where could you make a contribution, and maybe taking that hobby that you love so much, and how could you make that into a job, and how could you, and off you go. I can give you 100 stories on what that looks like, and the smart companies do that in the company. How can we capture people's ideas and let them run with it? I met Art Fry. And you probably heard the story. He's the inventor of the post-it note from 3M. Okay, and he sang in the St. Paul Cathedral, and he'd stick a Nick's card in the hymnal for the next, and it'd fall out, and then he had to find his place and stuff. And he goes, "There's got to be." He works at 3M. There's got to be a way to put a low adhesive glue on a piece of paper so it sticks. And you know what? 3M, 100 and I don't know, 20 years old, and they innovation is their thing. So you think that, well, they would welcome that open arms. Well, he took it to the technical team on adhesives, and they said, no, we can't do it. It would be too hard to get consistency in a low-grade adhesive. That it won't work. And you know what he said? He said, that's great news, because I know once we crack the code, it'll be hard for anyone to imitate it. He didn't sway him a bit. And he took it to marketing. And they tested it in 7 markets. They came back. You know what they said? It's a bust. No one wants it. No one knows what it was. He said, you tested it wrong. You tested it wrong. Can you imagine? And so what he did, he and a buddy got a bunch of them, and they walked the streets of St. Paul, Minnesota, going in store after store and giving away a free sample. First time in the history of the company where they gave away a free sample. Yeah, we call it a post. Yeah, just stick it on something when you want a note, and then a week later they came back to visit those same stores. 90% wanted to place an order for more of them. Mm-hmm. Okay, he still wasn't done. Well, how much evidence do they need? He went to administrative assistants in the company, gave them all ones. And when they came back and they said, how do I reorder that? It's a go. We're doing this. The Post-it became, in his first year, a $300 million line of business. Because of one guy that wouldn't take no for an answer on a simple idea and everyone has ideas, and you have the most ideas about the job we're doing and where we're working. I worked with the company in Connecticut, Boardroom Inc. They do newsletters, 5 of the top 6 largest selling newsletters in the country, and they do a thing, they still do it, called iPower, where they ask every employee to turn in 2 ideas every week. Every employee 2 ideas. Now they don't get every employee doing it every week, but they get most of the people doing it, and then they instead of giving those ideas to a suggestion committee or putting in a suggestion box that never gets open, or goes to a committee that once a quarter looks at them and say, we're not doing this idea. What gives you the right to tell us what we should be doing in purchasing? Who the heck are you? And it'll never happen again. Instead, they have volunteers from the employee population review those ideas, and in most cases, then they teach them to say, we're trying to encourage ideas. So most cases they review the idea and say, this is a great idea, Charlie, you should really do that one. They give it back to the person with permission to proceed. Let us know how we can help you with your idea. And as a result, thousands of ideas. They told me that just doing this one simple thing, but doing it very well to keeping at it, making it real, they increased their revenues 5-fold in 3-year period. And they had, just as one example, they had a shipping clerk that they have these hardbound books, and they're expensive to mail. And a shipping clerk, one of the ideas he turned in one of the weeks, he said, next time we get this book printed at the printer, if we trim the paper size, he calculated 1/16 of an inch. It'll come in a lighter weight. It will save some money in postage. And they go, wow. And they cut up. He's right. He's true. They did that. And in the first year, they saved $500,000 in postage. The CEO of the company, Marty Elston, told me, he said, Bob, I've worked in direct mail for 27 years. I didn't even know there was a 4th-class postage rate. But the young kid that's staring at the chart day in and day out, he knew it was. Oh, we missed it again. We missed it again. Mm-hmm. Wow. Everyone's got I really believe this. Everyone's got a $50,000 idea if we can give it some airtime. and not assume that we're smarter than them, and that's why that could be the new hire. So you see what I'm about, and part of the mix is making the whole thing fun, and even just on getting ideas. Like they'll have meetings, have ideas, and they'll throw people candy for the idea they submitted, and so they have fun in the work itself. Certainly when you finish a project, or you got to have some celebration, and that's so there's different types of fun at different levels. For a lot of employees, they tell me, the only time they hear from the boss is when they made a mistake. And if they do finish a big project, the reward they get, and we talked about celebrating, but we usually don't celebrate. Instead, we get 2 new projects to work on. It's like, what? It's the exact opposite. So we're not thanking people for the job they did, as easy as that can be, or even better, at the start of the project, saying, hey, if we make this happen, I'm going to be pretty excited. What do you all want to do to celebrate? If we're able to finish this project, this is going to be key to our success. Mm-hmm. And see what they come up with. You don't have to have all the answers, and then make that happen when this. And maybe it's presenting their findings to the management team. Maybe it's doing something without the management team that's just for them and their families. Whatever it is, go with that.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Bob, thank you so much for sharing so many examples. Is there one chapter in the book that you would most recommend people check out if you were to say, like, do this one thing?
Well, that's easy because I'm known as the guru of thank you. So the one thing, if you just want to do one thing to improve morale, performance, and a bond with any workers, start taking time to catch them doing things right. And it could be a note. It could be writing some notes at the end of the day before you go home. That is going to take you a couple seconds, but it's going to be a highlight of their day when you leave it on their desk, and they're going to save that note and put it in their victory file and review it when they're having a tough day. So just doing that one thing. It's called the greatest management principle in the world. What you get, what you reward, what you recognize, what you inspect. So that would be it. And I've done did my doctoral dissertation on that, and did a book, 1,001 Ways to Reward Employees, which is now in an expanded edition, 1,501 Ways to Reward Employees, that is in its 64th printing, has sold 2 million copies. So again, you don't even have to reinvent the wheel. You can open that book, or really any of my books, because all of them are filled with real life examples. You can open anywhere and find a usable idea. And if that one happens to not be able to be usable for you, just flip the page and the next one will be, so get in the game. Get in the game. And in many ways, all we have is conversation. Start having the conversations about the things that matter to employees. And by doing that, they'll be more likely to do the things that are important to you and to the company.
For sure. I'm going to include in the show notes my top favorite 3 or 4 books that you have.
Thank you.
That people can get access to. And with that final thought, Dr. Bob, thank you.